Come get me. I will wait for him here in Miraflores. Don't be late, coward. Nicolas Maduro to Donald Trump. Probably the worst take. Long time.
From atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where if the first weekend of 2026 has taught us anything, it's that if you are a shitbag narco dictator, maybe don't try to taunt Donald Trump. Maybe don't go on television and start waving your big swinging dick around going, "Here I am, you bastard, come and get me," because, yeah, he might actually come and get you. And not in the abstract either, not diplomatically, not with a sharply worded letter from the State Department written by somebody who majored in intersectional conflict resolution. He may actually come and get you. You know how Theodore Roosevelt famously said, "Walk softly and carry a big stick"? Trump walks around loudly and carries a freaking sledgehammer. And if you dare him to swing it in your direction, there is a significantly non-zero chance that he's going to take you up on the offer. And now, having dispensed with that longest of all parentheticals in the history of the universe, good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the year's first edition of the Blast Radius. Glad to have you with us tonight. And as you may have noticed over this past weekend, perhaps while you were recovering from whatever bad life decisions you made on Friday night, the United States conducted a military operation in which Senor Maduro of Venezuela was plucked out of what he thought was a secure location in Caracas, bundled into an American airplane, and before he could say, "Go to hell, you imperialist Yankee bastards," he was on his way to New York City to face justice in a U.S. courtroom, which is a hell of a way to start out the new year, I think. Most of us begin January by vowing to drink less and maybe do a bit of jogging. Some other people begin it by being extraordinarily renditioned and having their picture taken in earmuffs and blackout goggles. But hey, you do you, bro. It's not this reporter's place to judge another man's resolutions. And most impressively, most importantly of all, this very sophisticated, very complex operation was successfully carried off without the loss of any American lives or vehicles or materiel, except for one wounded airplane that is expected to make a full recovery, which is no small thing and deserves to be said out loud, preferably before anyone on Twitter decides to pretend they were opposed to success on principle. Now, before anybody starts hyperventilating and pearl clutching, and as much as I hate to paraphrase Barack Obama, let me be very clear. The host is not here to adjudicate the morality or the legality or the long-term wisdom of the Venezuela operation, because that way lies madness and congressional hearings and cable news panels where everyone looks, with all due respect to Edward II, like they have just had a red hot poker shoved up their bottom hole. That is not analysis. That is ritual humiliation performed for advertising revenue. The thing that does interest me, however, and it's a thing that should interest all connoisseurs of historical perspective, is the fact that whenever the United States conducts military interventions in Latin America, we tend to behave like this is a brand new idea we just came up with while we were in the shower, like we just leaned back against the tile, stared down at the grout, and said, wait a second, what if we just went in there and fixed the thing? So with that in mind, tonight we submit for your consideration the following Field Guide to American Military Adventures in Latin America, so that when this happens again, and make no mistake, it will happen again, you will at least recognize that this verse of the song rhymes with the last verse. Think of it as a guided tour from the Monroe Doctrine to the Woodrow Doctrine to the Ronroe Doctrine to the newly proclaimed Donroe Doctrine, which is a lot like the previous doctrines, but with substantially more gold leaf trim. Rule number 1, this time we have a plan. We open with Panama, 1989, Operation Just Cause, which right away, the name alone tells you that we were feeling pretty damn good about ourselves. Although some people preferred to call it Operation Pineapple Face, and that's a whole separate issue that involves helmets and camera angles and Clearasil. This was the prototypical late Cold War model of foreign intervention. We have clear objectives. We are bringing overwhelming force to bear. The target nation contains one extremely removable dictator who stands accused by the United States courts of all manner of very dastardly crimes. This is the intervention PowerPoint. This is the one where every bullet point lines up cleanly and nobody has to ask what the hell phase 4 means. And to be fair, tactically speaking, it worked. Noriega was removed. The regime did collapse. The mission was declared a resounding success. And it even enabled Mark Milley to have a couple of actual combat service ribbons among that big, ridiculous collection of fruit salad participation awards that he wears on his jacket. But even here, you see the pattern. Massive force, urban chaos, civilian disruption, and the dawning realization that so-called clean interventions still leave you with a mess that you have to live with. And they oftentimes don't change the long-term status quo all that much in the country that you say you are trying to liberate. Panama is when America says, we are the adults in the room, and we know exactly what we are doing. And history replies, that is absolutely adorable, you sweet summer child. Rule number 2, we're just here for a minute. We move next to Grenada, 1983, Operation Urgent Fury. A much sexier name than Operation Just Cause, it has to be said. Very Top Gun, very cocaine adjacent. This is intervention as a speed run. No pun intended. An island nation smaller than most U.S. counties with fewer residents than an average Costco on a Sunday afternoon invaded to rescue a few dozen medical students and ostensibly to prevent the emergence of a Marxist government that might potentially someday exist if we leave it unattended. And besides, if you go into your doctor's office and see a diploma on the wall from the Medical University of Grenada, are you going to be filled with an abundance of confidence? Let me answer that for you. No, you are not. This is preemptive intervention based entirely on the fear of regretting not intervening later, which is the foreign policy equivalent of buying a gun because you had a weird dream, which the host has never done before, allegedly. It was also the animating cause of one of history's most awkward telephone calls of the second half of the 21st century between the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of the United States. Hello, Ronnie. Maggie here. Well, hi, Maggie. How are you today? Very well, thanks for asking. But I say, Ronnie, I couldn't help noticing you seem to have invaded one of our former colonies. Now, look, Maggie, I think you're a real fine gal, and I was totally rooting for you guys last year when you played Argentina, but I couldn't say that out loud at the time, you understand. Well, yes, Ronnie, that's all well and good, you see, and I do appreciate the sentiment. I just would have liked the courtesy of a phone call before you lot went barging into our sphere of influence. You see, I know we don't have an actual empire anymore, but lots of people over here would very much like to pretend that we still do, and I'm afraid this has caused some rather hurt feelings. Maggie, I get where you're coming from, I really do, but as the leader of the free world, I just can't tolerate communism here in the Americas, even if it is just hypothetical communism. What kind of a Cold Warrior would I be if I did that? Oh, all right, Ronnie, I'm willing to let this go, but you do understand I'll have to lodge a very strongly worded diplomatic protest just in order to save face, but it's nothing personal, you see. Maggie, that's real decent of you, and I sure do appreciate it. And I guarantee you, this is all going to make a really awesome Clint Eastwood movie in a few years from now. Oh, that does sound nice. I trust you'll take me and Dennis to the premiere when it comes out. Well, not only will I do that, Maggie, but I will even do a Clint Eastwood impersonation for you right now here on the telephone. Oh, Ronnie, that would be such a delight. All right, Maggie, here goes. My name is Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Highway, and I've drunk more beer, pissed more blood, banged more quiff, and kicked more ass than all you numbnuts put together. Oh, thank you, Ronnie. That was such a treat. Okay, Maggie, you take care now. Bye. This was also the one where different branches of the U.S. military couldn't communicate with each other because their radios didn't work together, which feels less like trivia and, frankly, more like allegory. Grenada is what happens when Cold War anxiety meets logistical reality. We did win, but we also learned that even when you massively outgun your opponent, bureaucracy still gets a vote. And bureaucracy, as ever, tends to vote present. Rule number 3, something bad could happen. But then there's the Dominican Republic in 1965. A civil war breaks out, as civil wars sometimes do, and somebody somewhere might be a communist. And goddamn it, we just can't have that. Suddenly, 22,000 American troops are deployed to make sure ideology never even gets comfortable. You might call this an intervention driven entirely by vibes, not by evidence, not by any favorable outcome that seems achievable or even foreseeable, just a deep institutional feeling of, well, by God, I don't like the look of that. I don't like it very much at all. And naturally, LBJ was holding a little shrieking beagle puppy up by the ears while he was saying that, just to complete the mental image for you. This is the foreign policy equivalent of calling the fire department because the toaster made a noise that you didn't like. Sure, something could have gone wrong, but now something most definitely has. Rule number 4, we will leave once things settle down. If you really want the origin story, you have to go back to the Banana Wars, Nicaragua, Haiti, Honduras, a series of conflicts that were bookended by the Spanish-American War and the institution of something that we very quaintly named the Good Neighbor Policy in 1934. This is where the United States perfected the concept of the temporary military presence that lasts so long it starts receiving mail. We arrive to stabilize the situation, we reorganize the power structure, and then we say we are leaving just as soon as things settle down, which history translates as just go ahead and cancel everything you had on your calendar. This is also where Latin America learned to recognize the sound of good intentions arriving by boat. Rule number 5, we will know success when we see it. And floating over all of this like a sepia-toned fever dream is the punitive expedition of 1916. General Pershing chasing Pancho Villa into Mexico with cavalry optimism and absolutely no exit strategy. Lieutenant George Patton, having just led history's inaugural motorized assault, returning to camp with the carcasses of 3 enemy combatants strapped to the hood of his Dodge touring car like so much venison. No declaration of war, no condition of victory, just horses, dust, and a strong, unshakable belief that momentum counts as policy. It doesn't work, of course. In fact, it doesn't resolve much of anything, really, but it does, however, establish a new tradition, which brings us back to Venezuela in the year 2026. Different country, different technology, different rhetoric. And today you can get a job done with 20 men on the ground that used to take 20,000. And to be sure, there is something to be said for that. But the underlying belief remains largely unchanged, that we can intervene surgically in a complex political ecosystem without knocking over any of the furniture. History doesn't say that's an impossibility per se. It just says that it's never boring, it is rarely clean, and it is invariably followed by the words, gosh, nobody could have predicted that, which, historically speaking, is America's favorite punchline. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, here ends your field guide to American military adventures in Latin America, and I now transmit you into the brawny but strangely comforting arms of my distinguished colleague, your illustrious co host, the one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Fucking amateur hour in this place. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Blast Radius. I have recently watched the new Naked Gun movie, and I'm going to wax philosophical about that thing for a minute because it's got both good and bad issues. Some issues can be good, that is true. But without further gilding the lily, we want to talk about how many people does it take to knock over a South American dictator?
17, maybe 18.
Yeah. I mean,
drones are an amazing thing.
I'm just saying, he's lucky he didn't wake up with a Reaper in his bed.
I mean, did he really think he could taunt Donald Trump like that and not have Trump take him up on the taunting? I feel like you've never met Donald Trump before if you think you can do that.
I just never watched Home Alone once. I mean, what was he?
Seriously.
Good Lord. And
then you see him sitting on the airplane with those blackout goggles and the big earmuffs on, and you can just tell he's thinking, maybe I shouldn't have taunted that guy. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to wave my big swinging dick around. Maybe that was all a very big mistake.
I'm sure it works in his other circle of friends, right? Like,
yes, it probably comes off very impressively in the crowd that he normally travels with. You know, the sycophants who have to laugh at his jokes or else they get killed. One of those types.
I don't know what to make of it, but I mean, apparently we're back at Manifest Destiny 2, baby. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know what to make of it any better than you do, which is why I'm holding back on drawing far-reaching judgments from the thing right out of the gate, 2 days afterward, because only stupid people do that, or people who have to fill up lots of airtime on television, which, that might be repetition there, but
same people.
I mean, yeah, it's the same people, and who the hell knows what the consequences are going to be? If there will indeed be any consequences, we can't say for sure.
There are definitely going to be consequences. You can't help it. They're inevitable consequences. First of all, you've literally beheaded the top of a government, regardless of what design it might be, that is at the wellhead of the fourth largest oil reservoir on Earth.
Yeah, one of those two.
Whoever it is that ends up going in there to be an actual force for change into whatever it's going to become is going to be super, super sympathetic with the whole oil industry. So I don't know who they've got walking around with the cartel's hand up their butt, moving their lips right now, whoever that chick is. But if she ain't careful, her ass will be sitting right next to Maduro.
And I'm not crazy. In fact, I'm really, really non-crazy about the idea of us directly administering the country. I mean, if you want to go grab a dictator who's accused of many very dastardly crimes and put him on trial, that's one thing. But directly administering a country, I mean, are we allowed to violate the Monroe Doctrine, or is that just European countries? I mean, where's the dividing line on that one? Exactly.
We do have a process by which to take on provinces and protectorates and, dare I say it?
States. Go ahead and say it.
States. Right? Like, this is not untrod pathways. This has been done before. The modern legality of it might be somewhat questionable, but I ask you this, dear sir. I ask you this. Who, pray tell, will enforce it?
Yes. And well, I guess you run into the same kind of problem you ran into with denazification in Germany, because if you go around getting rid of all the people who were associated with the previous regime, suddenly you wind up with a new problem of we don't have anybody that knows how to do anything. So, and that's always the big stumbling block anytime you try to affect regime change in foreign countries. And we were just talking about backstage before the show that it would have been interesting to see if the First World War hadn't interrupted the punitive expedition when we were, just barely a year into it in 1917, how we would have handled that problem in Mexico. Because if the First World War doesn't intervene and we complete that operation, then we would have wound up, wouldn't we, with something, a pretty similar kind of problem, that we would have thrown out the Mexican regime and then figured out what the hell to replace it with, and had to militarily occupy the place for a good number of years, it would seem to me. So that might be a good bit of a fun little avenue of hypothetical alternate history if we wanted to go down one of those roads.
We might do that a little later. But just, I'm going to say this, and it might be a hot take, but I think turning Panama over to Panama was a bad move. Always
It
has
was a
been.
bad move. It was a terrible move. That's not a hot take. That's just a true thing.
Okay. And I think turning any socialist dictatorship over to a new socialist dictator is probably a bad move.
Yes. And if there is a plan to avoid doing that, I hope there is, but I have yet to see it.
So here we are, apparently in the dawning days of a puppet vassal state in the South American continent. Like, we've got a beachhead. Now what?
We do. We do have a
We got
foothold and a
Deepwater Harbor,
beachhead
bro.
now.
That's a
Yep.
Deepwater Harbor. We're good.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
we can send some shit in there, bro.
Oh yeah, I mean, if we wanted to fully exploit it and occupy it and not be pretending that weren't occupying it, then yeah, that opens up a whole wide variety of ranges of options, and which makes me wonder to what extent this is directed at China and the inroads that China has been attempting to make in South America in the last 5 or 10 years, because I think that certainly is one of the chess pieces on the board currently. Don't you agree?
I think this is more to do with China and Taiwan than it does really with Venezuela. Because
You may
let's be
not be
honest,
wrong. Yeah.
one of the things China's been doing, or at least allegedly been doing, is utilizing various South American entry points to the US in order to get their precursor chemicals for fentanyl inside. And I don't care if folks agree that that's what's happening or not. It is. That's one of the things that the cartels are utilizing as their monetary source for all of the cool toys they've got. If America deals with Venezuela in a quick, rapid, succinct manner and then basically pulls out. You remember I said when the Ukrainian thing started up, I was like, we need to watch Taiwan, because as soon as we're not on point with Taiwan, China's just going to scoop that sucker up, right? And if we're not there, if there's nobody there to stop it, there's nothing going to stop that. And I
Yeah,
figured
if
when the
if
Ukraine
nobody's
stuff-
minding the store because you're looking over the other way, then yeah.
so I figured when Ukraine set off and there was increasing involvement taking place, that there would reach a tipping point, and suddenly you'd wake up one morning and Taiwan would be China. Suddenly, right?
Even
And
though
I'm
I still don't think that operation would be as easy as China might like to imagine it will be, but we've had that
Oh.
conversation before.
Oh no, that's a totally different conversation, because it's not so much about boots on the ground as the quality of intel available.
Yeah,
Right.
precisely.
I mean, you're not going to make that invasion without Taiwan being well aware that it's taking place, like long before it actually happens.
And also they have had 75 years now in which to build all of the infrastructure and make all of the associated arrangements that might be required in order to wage a hell of a long and a hell of a bloody guerrilla war if
You
there
ever
is
seen
an
a top,
attempted takeover.
you ever seen a topographical map of Taiwan?
Oh yeah,
It's not
yep,
going to be fun, dude. That is
not going to be fun at
that was
all.
cool. That's like trying to take Switzerland, but hot
And
and muggy.
and there is always the possibility that it winds up being such a shit show and such a bottomless pit of blood and treasure that it winds up destabilizing the Chinese regime back on the mainland. And I think that has to worry the hell out of them. If it didn't worry the hell out of them, they would have made the attempt long before now. They wouldn't have been sitting around thinking about it for 75 years, but that's just my thinking.
Um, and then again, there is that whole royal family question. Uh, what would happen if the Communist Party were to be destabilized and toppled in mainland China?
I think there's going to be a lot of royal family questions over the last 3/4 of this century, frankly, and we've kind of had that conversation before too. I think I think the story of the 21st century after it's over may well be that the as the 20th century saw a drift. The first part of the 20th century saw a drastic shift away from monarchy and toward non-monarchical forms of government. I think the 21st century might see that trend reverse to some extent. And I think it might happen in Europe and Asia alike. And China is one of the places where it could happen, as you just mentioned.
I'm not, well, I'm not disagreeing, on its surface. I'm just saying that in the event, hypothetically speaking, say something sets off in Mongolia that distracts China just a little bit and befuddles any reaction to Taiwan. The two combined events topple the monetary system they've been kind of sitting on the top of, which, by the way, has been kind of eroded by the tariffs and stuff. Like that shit's really wearing on them.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Poof, the tipping points hit. The next thing you know, you got a bunch of rebellions popping off all over China. It goes absolutely hell in a bucket. And they're given basically two options. We can, and what sets all of this off is an attempt to invade Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
That
And as we know, I often, sorry, go ahead.
that would result in a very interesting juxtaposition of Taiwan being in a financially more secure position to be able to take over management of China than China itself, because they don't have a self-righting policy that's in place in the event of this type of stuff. And the royal family could very easily walk back in and be like, all right, listen, I know it's been fun, but it's time to get back down to work. Let's open some markets. Let's grow some food. Let's plant some rice, and the people might be down for it if it's a rational plan. That's pretty much
Absolutely.
working
And
mine
and
are,
and
right?
it's certainly a worthwhile point to consider, because if you want to talk just in terms of economic power and capacity per square mile and administrative expertise per square mile, nobody on the face of the planet can really defeat Taiwan in terms of the economic might of the society they have built for themselves. Even with the specter of Chinese invasion hanging down their throats all these years, and even without diplomatic recognition from anybody in the world, even not
Right.
having all of that stuff, they have still managed to achieve. And and you're right, that meanwhile, back on the mainland, you've had 75 years of communist thinking, which, if and when the regime gets toppled, nobody's going to want any communism. And so, where do you look for a better model? You look to Taiwan. And in terms of the logistics of the thing and the politics of the thing, I know it's a much smaller scale example, but I often think of the commonalities between the China-Taiwan situation and what Argentina tried to do in 1982 when they went to try and grab the Falklands. That was a military junta totalitarian regime in Buenos Aires that there were protests in the street. They felt like their grip on power was kind of more tenuous than they would like it to be. And what do regimes do when situations like that arise? They say, let's launch a war, let's start a big tidal wave of patriotism, and then if we successfully win the thing, then everybody will love us, and that's our best way out of the morass that we are currently in. And it may get to where the Chinese communists start viewing this situation in that same way if they find their position less secure than they would like it to be.
And yes, but what I'm saying is, and it would take, we're talking about threading a keyhole here. I'm not talking about this having any high probability of taking place.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I would firmly believe that it would take a previous event to set this up to happen properly, right? Somewhere
perhaps even an unforeseeable event.
Something you can't predict, right? And that's why I picked
kind of
Mongolia.
a black swan sort of a deal, yeah.
I don't see Mongolia bucking the trend enough to like take on China seriously. But if they were to, hypothetically speaking, if they were to suddenly wake up tomorrow and decide, you know what, fuck this shit, and just go balls deep, China would have to respond. They would have no choice. Mongolia is just big enough to make a real bitch out of it. And they could take quite a bit of territory, much like the whole Ukrainian-Russian situation. They're in a unique position to do significant damage to China without a whole lot of effort on their part. So they would have to respond. And their response would weaken whatever resolve that was going into the idea of a Taiwan invasion. And the Taiwan invasion takes place, and you're suddenly trying to defeat basically what is the Southeast Asian Alps, right? You're trying to beat Switzerland in their home turf, and a second war with a enemy that's not even worried about losses because they've already won enough to call it a day.
Right, and they've had many decades in which to prepare for the exact thing you're attempting to do.
Right. So Taiwan knows the attack is coming, has known it since its virtual inception. So this will occur inevitably. It will, as long as China exists as China, this attack will come one day, and they know it. So there's that.
Oh yeah, the entire default condition of the Taiwanese people assumes that day is coming. It's almost like the way we existed when we were kids in the Cold War. It didn't occur to any of us that we wouldn't have a nuclear war with the Russians. It was a thing that was absolutely inevitably going to happen. It was just a question of when. And this is even more assured than we thought that was.
Right. So this is actually in writing, basically, from China, who's been threatening to do it for the past 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, threatening to do it tomorrow, for 70 years. So like, we might be.
Oh yeah, they don't even look at how pissed off they get whenever anybody even uses a turn of phrase that suggests that China and Taiwan are separate political entities. Look what happened to freaking John Cena when he did that. He had to make a freaking hostage video.
Exactly. On national television. Jesus.
I know. Hey, dude, just shake yourself. Maybe don't do that in the first place, and you won't have to apologize for it 5 years later. I'm just saying.
I'm distantly related to James Hetfield from Metallica, actually. So okay, that makes sense. Oh yeah, we got to do a thing.
I'm distantly related to Frodo Baggins.
Oh, you go, girl. I hear you, them little fuzzy-footed fuckers. We
got Elijah
Scotty
Wood
Waddles.
Is actually like a fifth cousin of mine, I believe.
Scotty Waddles in the chat, dropping blessings on all of us, sent me money.
Scotty Waddles is an absolute legend. We love Scotty Waddles. Scotty Waddles is why we do this program, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
This one's for you, buddy. Nice.
Nice.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. Let's pivot a little bit here.
Okay.
We're at the 30-minute mark. We're a little past, but have you had a chance to watch the new Naked Gun?
I have not. My kids tried to get me to watch it, and they did not succeed, so I still haven't seen it.
All right. So it is what happens when you have kids who grow up watching a series, just like the original Naked Gun series of shows, not shows, movies, right? The 3 movies, or 3, right?
Well, it actually originated as a very short-lived TV series called Police Squad.
Hold on, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
we'll go into the history of it in a second. Originally, there was a series. It was all slapsticky and silly, but it was kind of serious at the same time, and it mocked all of the cop shows of the day. And then it became a movie franchise. The movie franchise was written by a group of people who watched the original series, grew up, and became writers, and was like, "I want to write something like that." And a bunch of people got in the room and tried to one up everybody on how silly they could be. This current rendition of The Naked Gun is what happens when the people who watch the Naked Gun movies and have no clue the source material of the original series go, okay, but this time we're going to do it funnier, right? And some of
Yeah.
it is hilarious. Some of it is it's so on the nose in some cases that you don't know if it's woke or being ironically woke or just mocking wokeness. It's hilarious.
And that's a difficult one. And I also just can't get my head around the Liam Neeson thing. I just
Dude,
and
I'll
granted,
look at
there's not really any actor in the current landscape today who is the same thing that Leslie Nielsen was when the original Police Squad series came out and the original Naked Gun movies, because he spent an entire career building a niche for himself as an actor that made the parody in that show and those movies as funny as it was. And it was, and if you even you were talking about understanding the source material, and if you aren't familiar and you haven't seen all those disaster movies that Leslie Nielsen was in the early and mid and late 70s, pretty much throughout the entire 70s. He was one of the busiest actors in all disaster movies. Then you can't fully grasp why The Naked Gun was so funny, because he was a dead serious disaster movie actor who never cracked a joke in his entire life, and that is what made The Naked Gun so funny. I don't think Liam Neeson is positioned in anything resembling that same kind of a way where the deadpan can come off as well as it did 35 years ago.
and I don't disagree with you, but let's say hypothetically, you're in Hollywood, someone tosses you a script for a new Naked Gun movie, and you're like, "Pfft, bullshit, no way that's going to happen." And they say, well, we've got Liam Neeson signed. You'd pick it up, take another look at it, go look at his
Yeah.
actual, like his no, okay, right. And you're absolutely correct. Liam Neeson is not a fit classically for this role, but he pulls it off as well as a great actor will. If you get what I'm saying, he's a great
Sure.
actor. You got to admit he delivers his line with salt and pepper and spice on him, right? It's all of the stupid stuff that you love about Police Squad, and sometimes it goes so far overboard as to intentionally jump the shark on screen and then walk right back into being a normal police show again. And do you remember the scene where he's standing in front of the fireworks factory and everything's exploding and going off, and he's like, "There's nothing to see here."
I've used that
This
scene half a dozen times in my videos. Yeah.
this movie is that scene all over, everywhere, every bit of it. You know the scene in Airplane where they've got the woman's freaking out and everybody's taking turns slapping her around and trying to knock some sense into her. They
Uh-huh.
form a line with chains and whips and shit around the corner. It's like
Yeah.
that, but
And
it's a
and
whole
I'm glad you brought up Airplane, because that is a larger scale example of the exact same thing we're talking about. Because in addition to Leslie Nielsen, who was also in Airplane, obviously, you had Peter Graves, Robert Stack. That entire movie was full of guys whose whole reputation as actors at the time the original Airplane came out was as dead serious disaster movie actors who do not do any form of comedy, much less slapstick parody comedy. And that's why Airplane is funny, because these actors were giving you the exact last thing that you expect from those actors at that point in history, and that's why it works so well. And that's
surely
I
you
can
can't be
and
serious.
surely you can't be serious. And I absolutely can picture the thing you're talking about, where the next generation comes along and they say, well, look, Airplane was hilarious. The Naked Gun was hilarious, but they don't fully grasp why it was hilarious because they haven't seen the source material of the source material, if you get my drift.
Right. No, I get it. I get what you're saying. It's very much the same situation we end up with the what was it? The new Fantastic Four movie and the new Superman film. They both fall into the same hole of not truly understanding the source material that they understand the source material they used, but not the source material that was used to make the material they used. And so it's like a really crappy game of telephone.
Exactly. And you never get the impression watching so-called comic book movies from the current decade that makes you think that the people who made this movie actually read comic books when they were growing up, because they totally didn't. Anything they know about comic books, they learned from reading Wikipedia articles or being told about it by people who did read comic books, old crusty white men like you and me. I actually
Right.
did read comic books when I was growing up, as I'm sure you did too, but not the
So,
people making these movies. Absolutely not. And you can tell they
and
just don't understand the idiom and at all.
well, there's something of a meta to um the spoof film, right?
Right.
Naked Gun was a spoof film, but it was a highbrow mix of slapstick and situational representational comedy. The casting of O.J. Simpson as being Trevor's lackluster and barely, totally inept uh, partner was such highbrow genius that it was really hard to recast him. They just killed him. They spent the entire second movie just murdering OJ Simpson over and over and over again, and it's fucking hilarious.
Oh,
And
I know.
that's what these people remember was the over the top second movie, and not so much the just outright left turn strangeness of the. You know what the first Naked Gun movie reminded me of a lot, and
Hmm.
it's no specific situation, just the flavor and feel of it, the way the jokes are delivered. If you've ever seen a movie by Val Kilmer back in the day called Top Secret, it's the first underwater fight scene that ever took place in film. An underwater swim.
I know the movie you're talking about, but I can't remember if I actually saw it.
All right, so in Top Secret, Val Kilmer plays an American rock star who is going to East Berlin to play a show specifically for whatever dictators over there. He goes over there, doesn't understand the language, doesn't understand the customs, doesn't really care. This is all for his manager to deal with. And so he basically just tears an American swath straight across the countryside while trying to work for the CIA and derive information to alleviate some stresses during the Cold War. And in the process, he has to like sneak into like German. It's retarded. It is restarted as it could possibly get. And my favorite scene in the whole movie. There's a point where they're trying to sneak into the place, right? And so they dress
Right.
up as a cow. And in the process of sneaking through, they have to cross a breeding pen. And the breeding pen has a couple of calves in it. And there was one guy in the front of the suit and another guy in the back of the suit. And the calf comes up and starts suckling on an udder. And the guy in the back of the suit stops the guy in the front of the suit and tells him to wait a minute. We're almost done.
Yeah, the more you tell me about it, the more I do remember having seen it, but it was way back like when it originally came out. So I'm having trouble recalling. But yeah, a cow in rubber boots. You cannot go wrong with a cow in rubber boots, ladies and gentlemen.
Cow and four rubber boots. That's right. That's laughable just to think about. Everybody guffaw with me.
Everybody guffaw with me. And one other thing I want to mention and one of the things that is also a commonality between Airplane and The Naked Gun, one of the things that makes both of those movies so freaking hilarious is that the soundtrack plays it completely 100% serious and straight. The soundtracks for those movies, for the Naked Gun, it is 100% straight, serious police movie soundtrack, and for Airplane, it is 100% straight, serious, disaster movie, 70s
Right.
disaster movie soundtrack. I mean, even I guess the sound of the propeller noises when the jet's flying in the air could be kind of skirting the gray area a little bit, but and God, it wasn't until decades later when I saw a John Wayne movie that I can't. Damn it! I wish I could remember the name of the movie. I saw this John Wayne movie. It's the one where he's an airline pilot and he's, it's a dangerous flight and they barely pull the fat out of the fire and survive in the end. And I'm watching this John Wayne movie and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is the movie that Airplane came from. Like 60% of Airplane came from this exact movie. Even the propeller noises that the plane makes while it's in the air came from this. I have to look that up because it's going to bore a hole in my brain until I think of it.
I'm working on it. The High and Mighty, 1954.
Yes, The High and Mighty. God damn it. I can't believe I couldn't think of it.
Where he plays a co-pilot bringing a damaged airliner safely to land, establishing the template for the genre of disaster movies to follow.
Yep. Yeah, that is.
And you're right. That was a direct inspiration, one of a dozen direct inspirations for Airplane.
Yeah.
I do have one complaint. I don't have a problem with Liam Neeson playing the role, especially given that he committed to the bit so freaking hard.
Is he playing Detective Frank Drebin, or is it a differently named character?
Son. It's his son.
Okay.
His alcoholic, deadbeat, absolutely useless son who can't really do anything right, just like Frank Drebin. There's this great scene where he gets a self-driving car, and so he gets in the car at one point. You remember Drebin's driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
He literally plowed over everything. There was not a fruit stand safe anywhere in the greater LA area. Like,
well, yeah, and also the scene that culminates in the exploding fireworks factory. The earlier part of that scene is he hijacks a driver training car to chase the criminals, and there's like a 16-year-old girl with braces who's at the wheel that whole time, and that's part of what makes the scene hilarious.
So in this one, he's given a self-driving car by their analog of Elon Musk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he decides to use it, and I don't know why this made me laugh so hard. My wife didn't seem to get it. I had to stop the movie so I could laugh this one off. In the scene, he's in his self-driving car and he's working out how this works, and the car starts driving, and in the camera angle changes and there's people in the way, and then it changes back and he's in Frank Drebin's car from the original series. The interior is that car, and he's
Nice.
doing all the things, trying to stop the thing from going crazy and running over people and whatnot. And then it cuts back to the exterior scene, and when it goes back to the interior scene, he's back in the newfangled car pressing buttons and stuff like a normal person. And then it cuts back to them running over some balloons or some shit, and when it comes back, he's back in the original squad car, like just jerking on levers and pressing buttons.
And you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of that gag they pulled with the car driving scene in Airplane, where they were making fun of the way they used rear projection for car driving scenes back in the 50s and 60s, and how ridiculously implausible it looked. And there's just all kinds of random shit going on in the background, and the characters are just driving the car and having their normal little conversation. And
God, that was so good.
God, that was so good.
And I don't want to build it up so much that you find it negative when you watch it, but I just want to make it clear: the woke aspects of this movie are blended into the irony and satire so well that you leave watching it wondering exactly what side of the aisle these people walked on. It's obvious who they're catering to. You can tell who they're pandering to, but at the same time, it's wrong, bro. It's all done wrong, so wrong that it's laughable, and that's hilarious. There's a scene with Liam Neeson in a dress, but it's not a dress like John Cena. It's not a dress like it is literally an Asian schoolgirl's dress for an Asian schoolgirl and sized for that schoolgirl. It is not a pretty picture. It's not. No one would see that and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go put on a dress today." They'd be like, "Yeah, maybe not."
And it's a whole new. Go ahead.
Cherry panties. That's all I'm gonna say. Cherry
Oh, and
print.
it's a whole sort of new and different mode of movie criticism that you have to do in the current decade when you're trying to decide, are they actually being woke, or are they mocking wokesterism? It was kind of the same question I often found myself asking during the Barbie movie, and I don't know if anybody else had the same experience with the Barbie movie. Like some of this wokesterism is so completely absurdly on the nose that I have to wonder if it's actually a subtle subversive criticism and condemnation of wokesterism. And I still don't know one way or the other. I can't say.
So there's a point about 3/4 through the movie, and you'll know it when you get there, where things just become a psychotic fever dream of absolute madness. And I don't think anyone's going to take the end of this movie even remotely seriously. Uh, my wife stopped watching the last 15 minutes because things had gotten to a point of absurdity that she just couldn't, like, she couldn't continue. She like got up, went and made a cup of coffee, like she had forgotten she was watching a movie.
Ironically woke, says Queenbird.
I don't know though. I'm gonna watch it again tomorrow, and I'll have a better grasp on it. I wasn't even expecting to watch it today. I just woke up and was like, maybe
You know,
he's funny.
I find it kind of surprising. I've found it surprising for a number of years now that you remember the whole franchise and the whole phenomenon of you know, genre parodies, scary movie, this movie, that
Right,
movie, that nobody has still made woke movie. And there is such fertile ground for making woke movie, and nobody has made it yet. Probably because the
not
wokesters
wrong.
don't want to be made fun of, but and maybe the decade just needs to run out more of its course before Hollywood is ready to get to that point. But there is so much fertile ground there to be cultivated that I can't believe that no studio has yet taken the chance, because if that movie was made and if it was good, it would do bushels of business. I'm telling you right now.
Right. I firmly believe you're telling the truth. And I firmly believe that movie has been written and is sitting on somebody's desk in Hollywood. They're sweating over it like every other night. They've
Yeah.
started gambling and drinking at the bar again because they have it. They know it's there.
Yeah,
And
you may not be too far off.
yeah,
There might be a number of different scripts circulating for it, but everybody is just too terrified to you know
that's another good
to
point. I don't think this is one script. I think this is another case of multiple scripts getting jumbled together. Like they had several people pitch a new franchise for Naked Gun, and instead of taking any particular subject matter specifically, the MacGuffin in this is literally called the PLOT device. Story of the Kingsman, where it turns everybody against each other and everybody starts trying to kill each other with a plot device. It's great. I mean, there's things like that that are absolutely on point. And then you turn around and there's scenes like where uh homeboy tries to talk to his dad and he's like, send me a sign, show me an owl. And then later, of course, an owl shows up, and then the owl poops on a vehicle, but owls don't poop.
Because normally, as we know, not just with the films we've been talking about, your Naked Gun and your Airplane, but even before those, all the way back to 1974 with Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles had to be made because the Western movie genre had reached such a point of self-parody that you had to do an actual parody of it. And wokesterism and virtue signaling, social justice bullshit in movies is, it needed to be parodied 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, but here we are, and nobody has made that movie yet, or no studio has been willing to make that movie or to greenlight the script, whichever the actual case happens to be. But that's normally the way that the industry deals with genres that are completely played out and past their sell by date, is they start going into parodying them viciously, because obviously that's the way you can drag a few extra bucks out of a thing that you have already beaten like a dead horse. And some studio has to have the courage at some point. I think I think we probably will see it in the next couple of years, I would guess.
I hope, dear God, I hope. I don't know though. This movie does. It doesn't. All right, so the closest thing it does to a risque joke, in my opinion, is Frank Drebin Jr. standing in front of a picture of Leslie Nielsen, having a conversation with his dead father. While that's happening, the guy next to him is standing in front of a picture of Frank's partner, and yada yada yada. And then you get down to the black guy who's kneeled down in front of O.J. Simpson, and each one of them's, having a heartfelt, teary-eyed soliloquy to their own dad. And they show him, and he just looks at the camera, and is like, and gets up and walks away. No.
Answer a question for me, if you remember. Was the body condom scene in the first Naked Gun or the second Naked Gun? I feel like it was in the second one.
I think it's in the second one, but I will find out.
Yeah. But back in those halcyon days of our youth, that was actually a pretty risque scene for its time. But God, it was funny. It was just freaking hilarious. And what a great send up and mockery of the whole safe sex culture of the time that was just going completely freaking overboard. You couldn't get through any sort of celebrity or musician interview without the idiot celebrity saying something about condoms and safe sex, because it was the virtue signal of its day. It was just the thing you said because you wanted to come off as socially conscious, and there's always a thing like that. The only thing that changes is the thing, and the desire to virtue signal never changes.
Naked Gun, the second one, I think. Yes, I'm almost certain.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more certain I am that it is the second one.
From the files, from Police Files. Can't remember.
Yeah, from the Files of Police Squad, which was the original, very short-lived TV show that was the inspiration for the first Naked Gun movie. I don't think the actual Police Squad TV show lasted. It only lasted like half a season, if I remember correctly. Let me look that up.
It had like 9 episodes, 7 episodes, or something.
Yeah, something like that.
But that was a highly influential 7 episodes. It did exactly what you're talking about with Blazing Saddles, except it took it to the police investigatory drama that was, Bookham Dano and Hawaii Five-0 and
right,
all of that.
And it was a thing that desperately needed to be parodied at the time, because police procedurals were half of the shows on TV, and so that's the kind of artistic self-correction that we're talking about, that you need parody for. When the industry has gone so completely overboard on a certain idiom, then the industry has to turn around and make fun of itself, because that's just the way these things work. It's part of the whole artistic ecosystem. You go too far with a thing, and then you make fun of yourself for going too far with it. And it was only 6 episodes, believe it or not. How about that?
Yeah, it seems about right. It's like the Mr. Bean series. You'd have thought there were 225 of those episodes, given how much time you spent watching it in middle school.
Oh, I know. It's a remarkable point that you bring up, that some of the most influential TV shows are the shortest lived, that failed the hardest in the ratings. And the first show that comes to mind when I say that is Firefly.
Firefly,
was
absolutely.
Only got 13 episodes out of that show. And has there ever in history been a more influential 13 episode TV series than that one?
No.
I don't think so either. People still go to conventions and dress up like characters from that show.
I'm a fucking brown coat. I own the whole get up. Like the whole thing. I've got everything but a fucking spaceship.
That show didn't even get through half a season, and it got a movie made out of it, and there are still conventions and brown coats and
Okay. All right.
an entire fan subculture built up around it.
Let's do the
Turn
thing. Bro.
Nathan Fillion into a folk hero. Nathan Fillion is still getting work off of that show just because people liked him in it.
And it produced one of the greatest songs in the history of Hollywood, "The Hero of Canton."
That is a good song. I like that song.
It's phenomenal, bro. Every now and then I'll bust out and sing that shit live. Because why not?
Why not? Exactly.
But what is your favorite episode of Firefly? Just on its surface. That's a hard choice, ain't it? I really like
it's been long enough that I would need to sit and look at the episode list. So let me do that very briefly.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not even joking. This might sound like an exaggeration. I either watch Serenity or the entire Firefly series at least once every couple of months. Right?
Yeah, I don't disbelieve you.
I'll literally sit down and watch the entire season in a day. Why not? I'll plan a day for it. I'll be like, I ain't seen Firefly in a minute. It's time to watch it.
Oh, the second episode is a hell of a good one. The train job. I do
that
love
is
one.
Phenomenal. Mishka. Oh, dude.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably the most dynamic villain of that era of television. He's great.
And it was such a potentially fertile piece of creative ground. I mean, I know that it wasn't the first time that people tried to marry the genres of Western and science fiction, because I mean, when did the Westworld movie come out? 72, 73. So that wasn't a new idea, but it was the first time. Firefly was the first time that they were married up, in my opinion, so effectively in such a convincing and entertaining, edifying way.
One cool thing about that series is every episode takes a nod from the old Western genres without being overly subverted into it, you know?
Yeah, it could just as well be an episode of Wagon Train or Bonanza or Gunsmoke or any damn other old Western show, and that's what is so very brilliant about it. But it doesn't hit you over the head with that.
Look at when you get a chance, watch the episode Heart of Gold. This is the one that is a remake of the old Kurosawa Seven Samurai situation, where the Serenity crew is called in as hired guns to defend the
one with the whorehouse.
The whorehouse, right. Yep. And, you know, Jane's taking his pay off the top, as it were, right? Not only is it an excellently filmed episode, but the different stresses that take place in the episode are not at all what you expect them to be whenever you're going to a Western or even an old samurai flick, right?
And you know what's fascinating too about that whole franchise is that is still the best work that Joss Whedon ever did, isn't it?
There are people who would disagree with you, but
I mean, obviously he did the first Avengers picture, and that was good, but I don't think it was as good as Firefly or Serenity.
Wasn't he involved in some of the Buffy and Angel and shit like that series?
Oh yeah, I think Buffy was the first major thing that he was involved with, but I've never really seen much of that, so I can't comment on it.
Well, it's way bigger than Firefly, just in general. Let's see what all Joss Whedon did. I know he did a bunch of really successful stuff. Not Allegations. Shows. Wow. Buffy, Angel, Firefly, Serenity, Dollhouse, The Nevers, Dr. Horrible, something, sing-along blog, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Buffy the Animated Series, Star Wars, The Legacy of some other bullshit, and some other stuff as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that I've never even heard of.
Well, I mean, you know, when you shoot a shotgun, not every pellet hits.
Well, yeah, and then they famously brought him on board for Justice League after they fired Zack Snyder, and he made such a mess out of that. Well, I don't know if he made a mess out of that or if he was just operating within the constraints that the studio gave him. It's still difficult to tell, but it seems like he's been in a downward spiral ever since then, and that was what, almost 9 years ago now. But yeah, what a cock up that picture wound up being. It shouldn't be that difficult to make a Justice League movie. They made a Justice League cartoon, for Christ's sake, that was perfectly entertaining. You can't make a good
Right.
Justice League movie. What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with them. They don't want it to be a Justice League movie. They want it to be an Avengers film. That's the trap they fall into.
You raise an excellent point. And they gave it to Zack Snyder to make. I think Zack Snyder probably wouldn't have been their first choice, but what happened, if you recall, is they brought in Zack Snyder to make the Man of Steel movie. And by the time Man of Steel comes out, the first Avengers movie has come out in 6 months before the one before the other, and then the honchos at DC say, "God damn it, we got to have an Avengers franchise." So we're gonna whip up on a Justice League picture, and we might as well just have this guy direct it, who just directed our Superman movie. But I guess they obviously did first the Batman v Superman movie, which was just such a god awful piece of shit. And I guess that's part of this conversation too.
There's some parts of it I like. It's just I'm sorry that morons were writing for Batman.
Yeah,
If
and
actual intelligent people had been writing that film, it could have been great.
I actually don't mind Man of Steel all that much, as much as some people do. I guess I'm kind of working backwards on that one, but obviously it's a big problem that in the final fight, they destroy half the city and hundreds of thousands of people die, and it's never mentioned until the next movie, and then it's only kind of mentioned in passing. That's a pretty big artistic mistake that they've.
However,
Go ahead.
mention does offer a bit of insight as to how it's been forgotten. Bruce Wayne stepped in and volunteered to finance the rehabilitation of all the neighborhoods damaged by the Batman Superman fight. And then Lex Luthor stepped in to try to outflex Bruce Wayne and was basically attempting to out-donate the Wayne estate. And so I could kind of see where the city might just forget that 9/11 happened because two guys had a dick measuring contest for a chick.
Yeah, and that whole haphazard sort of the half decade they spent and the billions and billions of dollars they spent on production, and it was all just an exercise in trying to catch up with Marvel, trying to capture what Marvel had done with the first Avengers movie, directed by Joss Whedon, which is exactly why when they had to get rid of Zack Snyder during the Justice League picture, they said, "I know what'll fix it. We'll just bring in the guy who did the Avengers picture," which is one of the most wrong-headed decisions really in the history of the motion picture business when you get right down to it, because Joss Whedon is not a guy you can bring in to finish a Zack Snyder movie. Zack Snyder is very grimdark, very slow motion, like practically every shot in freaking slow motion with Zack Snyder, and very washed out color palette, lots of blacks and grays, and then you bring in Joss Whedon and you hand him these reels and you say, "Just make this look like the Avengers, will you?"
I've just realized Zack Snyder was entirely responsible for the communist propaganda film of Rebel Moon and Scargiver.
Oh yeah, which we talked about at some length on this program.
Right, because that thing is absolutely coal-fired spaceships, bro.
Yes, coal-fired spaceships. I believe those were the first 3 words of my review, if I recall correctly.
I hope so. It should have been. If it wasn't, I'm going to judge you harshly.
Coal-fired spaceships. Yeah. God, where do you even start? I think we devoted our entire 90 minutes to that one, and it wasn't enough time to point out everything. And let anti-gravity grain carts and
it's like coal-fired spaceship.
Yeah.
You've mastered anti-gravity but can't quite get the 0 point energy down. Imagine
It's almost like a super retarded version of what Joss Whedon did so successfully with Firefly in terms of marrying the Western with the sci-fi.
I think what it actually was, Zack Snyder had gotten something of a nod to do a Star Wars film, and then they pulled the plug on whatever it was he was attached to, and he was just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna make it anyway, and somehow managed to get backing to do it, and poof, you end up with Rebel Moon, which if you squint, it's obviously Star Wars.
That's a great comment by Ardent Party. Rebel Moon is a great way to get hammered. Spot the ripped off IP drinking game. God, you're gonna die of alcohol poisoning by the end of that game, my friend.
You can also use historical references for the
yeah.
for the drinking trigger, because there's a bunch of them, dude. There's a whole bunch of them. If you go through, in fact, actually, I'd like to get you and our party together to do that. Sit down and go through it like literal scene by scene, and look at the background and determine, is there a historical or movie analog for this somewhere in the past?
I'm telling you right now, the episode where we tore that movie apart was one of my favorite episodes we have ever done out of all 102 of them.
Dude, we spent like literally, we came right out of the box on top of its head and went 90 minutes straight, just giggling and laughing maniacally about the whole thing.
And we could have done a second 90 minutes, no problem.
Yeah, without taking a breath, it would have been no problem, because there's so much to hate about it. Okay, let's back up. Okay. Hypothetically speaking, if it was supposed to be a steampunk future, right? If that's what we were doing, it's the whole concept behind steampunk works with Scargiver and with Rebel Moon. The idea that there's these really downtrodden vassal planets and moons out there who are just population cogs that the local dictators and warmongers all bleed off of. It all fits with almost Warhammer 40K and almost like Dune type overview. But what's depicted in the actual movie doesn't really depict that well, because all of the royalty and super people that are in existence are dumb as fuck.
Right. And in terms of the broad stroke outline framework of the story, you could make something out of that's not ridiculous. But I think the problem that Zack Snyder has and has always had is that he is so concerned with visual images that he often doesn't give himself a chance to consider how fucking stupid the images are that he's putting together. Like, just like coal-powered spaceships. Like, he was probably watching Titanic the previous day, and he decided, I want a scene of motherfuckers shoveling coal into burners and boilers, and that's just what I want. And maybe he was surrounded by sycophants, who knows, who weren't willing to tell him, yeah, that's fucking stupid, because why would a goddamn interstellar spaceship be coal-powered, you idiot? But
Ardent, I have a request. I want you to find me on YouTube that scene where they kill the Emperor in the coal-fired heart of a fucking spaceship. There's a standing band. There's like 50 people in there. There's a couple of like guards and whatnot. And it's literally, what was the name of the other movie that did that shit? It was what was it, Caesar or Cleopatra or some goddamn shit, where an identical scene plays out where Caesar's given I think it's Caesar. Caesar's given hold on, let me look.
Wasn't Rebel Moon supposed to be the kickoff of a whole franchise?
I think the Star Wars movie, it was.
Well, yeah, because the title of the picture is Rebel Moon Part 1.
Yeah.
So that answers itself.
Trilogy, if I remember right. Rebel Moon, Assassination Scene.
Rotten Tomatoes, 22%.
Yeah. I see. I hate to be that guy, right? But I'm not sure that Rebel Moon actually got a fair shake.
Wow. Would you believe there is a 3.5 hour director's cut of that picture?
Yes, there's more slow motion communism.
God damn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you watch a Zack Snyder director's cut, you're going to get a hell of a lot more slow motion.
I wish I'd have known this. I think it's 14-minute, 10-minute dumbest scene in history breakdown of specifically that scene by the Critical Drinker. That's fucking gorgeous, bro.
Oh wow, they did make Rebel Moon Part 2. I never even heard
Yeah,
about it.
Scargiver. That's the name of it, Scargiver.
Huh.
And between the two, it is the better of two movies, but it makes no sense. It's the better of two movies because it's more entertaining to actually watch. But it makes
I might have to watch that one now that I'm thinking of how much we enjoyed ripping apart the first one.
Okay, I'll totally do that shit. God, I want to do a EFAP to it. Need somebody to work.
Oh,
with.
wouldn't that be fun?
Like just you watch it independent, then me watch it independent, and then us sit down together and like just fucking get shit faced and cream it. I've got a motif, a method. I call it just add film, and we use YouTube accessible material in order to EFAP the movies so that you can literally drop a link to the version of the movie we're watching, and we don't pause it. We just talk over the damn thing all the way through it, right?
Yeah, it's probably the safest way to do it.
And then when we actually upload it, it's uploaded mostly intentionally as an audio file so that you can watch the same movie we're watching with us and hear us bullshitting about the scenes as we go through it. But you can't hear the movie in our recordings, right?
Right.
And the overlay would be literal still frames of the movie scenes we're bitching about.
And we're the bargain basement copyright abiding version of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and doesn't that sound fun?
No, it's even better, dude, because the fact is that if we set it up this way, the people who decide to do this, right, it's just add movie. It's not that we're sitting there in front of the screen. You put the movie on, stick an earbud in.
It's you independently put the movie on and then you play the commentary along with it. And yeah, I've seen those kind of videos. Some of those videos are really quite fun.
They are. And I think Ardent would be a really good third for that. The only problem with that is we all have to bite our fucking tongues because we all hate everything equally. So we can't just hate every single scene. Although we could literally EFAP it and give like 3 minutes commentary to each scene.
Yeah, and
that's a lot.
And that's a difficult task for me with Zack Snyder because oh my god, let's just say I'm not the biggest Zack Snyder fan in the world.
No, I will EFAP the either Serenity or all of Firefly. We can watch Firefly 4 times tonight, and I will sit through the whole thing like it was the first time I watched it. I love that series. The movie's not quite as good, but it does a much better job at explaining the universe than the series does. But the series doesn't require that you understand the universe to accept what's going on.
And that was actually one of the things that I rather liked about the series is they don't hit you over the head with the exposition. You kind of have to infer things as you go along. And that's kind of the way I prefer. I think it's a more immersive fictional universe experience when you have to infer things and they don't just give you a big freaking exposition dump right at the start of the picture. But you know, maybe that's just me and I'm a weirdo.
They just do it in a really clever fashion. At the very beginning, they say the Earth was used up, so we found a bunch of other Earths.
Oh yeah, in the movie they do obviously, but in the series they don't. In the series they make you infer.
They do. If you go watch the very first one, the intro is a bunch of music, and then right before the actual episode starts up, it's Mal, and I think it's the only time that he actually does the intro reading until you get to like Objects in Space, maybe. And he's like, Earth was used up. Mankind went out, found more Earths. We colonized the universe. And those that have decided to take under control those that don't. And we didn't like it that much. So here we are, us and our bitty little spaceship against the whole universe. And then you hear
Chinese slang.
Right. And they do. There's so much subtext to that whole thing. Uh, the episodes themselves are extremely well put together, and I could sit and glow about fucking Firefly for a week straight. I'm not even joking. I can go to bed tonight, wake up in the morning, and pick right up where I left off on how great it is.
Well, yeah, it is that great, and it's amazing that some of the things that are the best and the greatest are the shortest lived, and the ones that don't even survive their first season or even half a season, really, because wasn't Firefly a late season replacement, and then it didn't get picked up for a full season, and that's how it ended.
Firefly, dude, it had an absolute nightmare of a show run because it was initially picked up for like right after the prime time slot, got transferred to like 10:30 or 10:05. Then it got transferred to like a midnight showing. And by the time you get around to Objects, I don't even think Objects in Space was ever actually released until after it went to DVD. But Heart of Gold was the finale. And
Yeah,
a good
it was
one.
on
Objects in
on-
Space are awesome.
It was on Fox, and it obviously was a late season replacement because the run dates are September 20th to December 20th, 2002.
Right. I'm over here dying.
Dying.
Oh yeah, I can barely breathe.
Should we call the ambulance?
Maybe the ambulance. Ugh. Anyway,
I'm going to look up the time slot history.
Yeah, it's horrible. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it came out in a good solid time slot. I remember because I watched the first 2 episodes, and then it left, and I missed an episode, which was not the train job. It also didn't come out in the right order initially.
Oh yeah, that's right. And that's pretty much every obstacle you can throw at a show to make sure it doesn't gain any traction. Move the time slot around. Don't release it in the right order. It's kind of the same thing they did with Star Trek. The only reason Star Trek lasted for 3 years was because people wrote so many letters to the damn network.
Well,
it never got terribly good ratings.
The train job was a really weird episode in that show because the train job was supposed to be the pilot. And then
yes, I remember that
they didn't want the train job as the pilot, and so while they were filming the train job, they stopped filming the train job and filmed the second episode, which I can't remember the title of that one. And went back and finished. Sorry, what?
It says here they started it at 8:00 Friday, then 9:00 Friday, then 10:00 Friday, and that's a lot of time slot shifts over 13 episodes.
Right. And then after the 10 o'clock swap, it got transferred to a different network, and it went to like 11 or some shit like that. It went later. It became, I remember because when Heart of Gold was released, I stayed up to watch it. It was an absolute knockdown drag out with my parents that I was going to stay up and watch that film because it's awesome.
It's kind of amazing that it managed to attract enough fans during that short, very, very multiple time slot run that the studio decided it was a good idea to make a movie out of it. And I'm kind of surprised the movie ever got greenlit.
The movie happened 10 years later, bro.
Yeah, I know.
There are 10 years between the end of Firefly and I I used to email I can't remember who it was, but I used to email the copyright owners regularly demanding they finish Firefly, that they reboot it, recast it, reshoot it, make a movie, whatever. And when they made the movie, I stopped.
I'm looking up to see how good a business the movie did. Where's Bob?
It was kind of an in-house sort of thing. I don't know. I don't even know if it went in theaters exactly.
It says here, despite high anticipation, Serenity performed poorly at the box office. Although several pundits predicted a #1 opening, the film opened at #2 in the United States, taking in $10.1 million on its first weekend, spending 2 weeks in the top 10, and closed on 17 November 2005 with a domestic box office gross of $25.5 million. Movie industry analyst describes Serenity's box office performance as like a below average genre picture. But then, wouldn't you expect something like that? I mean, it was a 13 episode series, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Although you
And
got
it's,
it.
wow, it's got a huge number on Rotten Tomatoes, 82%. How about that?
Everybody loves Firefly.
Well, this
Serenity.
is Serenity I'm talking about.
And I stand by the idea that had you changed a single cast character of the ship, it would not have worked. It would have been an absolute disaster. No one would have bought it. The fact that the entire crew came back together to film that film is absolutely miraculous.
And they still, if I'm not mistaken, get together for all the conventions and stuff too, don't they?
Yeah, no. There's a yearly Browncoats convention, and some of the
Which is
writers-
amazing in itself.
Like I said, I'm a Browncoat, bro. Like I've literally got the gear. Listen. Let me tell you how much of a horrible fan I am. In one of the episodes, Inara utilizes a laser beam pistol to take someone hostage for a few minutes, and I have the make and model of firearm that laser pistol is actually based off of. Same year, same make, same model. It's like all I need is 2 pieces of plastic and some bullshit to make it look just like the one in the damn movie.
You know, the only thing that show is missing is coal power, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, actually, no, because when you go to the Hero of Canton, they're using coal power to operate all of the kilns that are drying out the mud from the mudders.
But not on the goddamn spaceship.
Not on the goddamn, that is true. Jane, the man they call Jane.
Oh.
Get me liquored up one night, I'll sing it to you.
Oh, I bet you will.
Actually,
you'll sing.
I've done it on stage a couple of times. Like,
I bet you'll sing it like an absolute angel.
Not quite, because I get to giggling about halfway through, because they tell the story accurately, right? What happened? What they don't mention is the fact that ship got hit, and the reason he threw the money out was because he was losing fuel and wasn't going to make orbit.
It's kind of surprising that they've never done anything else with that franchise, since it's so widely beloved and has, you know, such staying power over the course of, what's it been, nearly 25 years now?
Actually, there's a few things out there if you're willing to read through some less than stellar writing in comic books. There's a little bit of a series based around the not the captain, but the black chick. She goes forward basically as a captain of her own vessel. There's another short comic series about Inara, and that one's dark, dude. It's stupid dark. Let me put it this way. There's a reason you don't attack companions, and it's because they will kill you and your entire crew. Companions do not get raped.
Good comment from True American. Firefly was done incredibly dirty, and no one will ever know how great it would have become. And I will sign that memo as well.
Yes, sir. Agreed. And we'll also, another good one, and I've mentioned this before, for the first season, that this is a show that should not have gotten a second season. Zoo. Watch the first season. Ignore the rest of it. Don't even let it accidentally play.
Understood.
The first episode of the second season is actually really cleverly done to make it sound unbelievably interesting, and then it sucks.
I think we might have to talk about the second Rebel Moon picture next week. I'm kind of liking the sound of that, frankly. I hope it's as bad as the first one. I'm sure have you seen it already?
I watched it when it first came out, whenever that was, and yeah, I'm down. Like Charlie Brown.
Yeah, somehow it escaped my notice completely, but I'm going to put that on my list for this week. Yeah, definitely.
When you're going to sit down and watch it, tell me, and I'll arrange to watch it very soon after.
Copy that. Understood. Should I do the thing?
Do the thing. That's the top.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius tonight for this very first episode of 2026. It was sure nice to have you with us. We hope you have had an agreeable, edifying, just absolutely lovely start to your new year so far. And we hope the rest of your new year is just as edifying and just as agreeable and just as all those good positive adjectives. Frankly, you have a great tomorrow and a pleasant day after that and a fantastic rest of your week. We will see you next Sunday back here, same place, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
Give me the money. Give me the money.